And then ended up being the Commanders. It was Coach Rivera on the phone. He was like, hey, we got 74th pick coming up. We're going to pick you. Hope you're excited to join our defense. And we like you and all that. So like, in my head, I was just on cloud nine. Like, it's definitely a crazy moment. Like, I never experienced something like that prior to the draft. And I haven't experienced some, maybe like my first start as a player. But getting drafted is one hell of a feeling for real.
Hey, welcome back to the 181st episode of the Athletes Podcast featuring Benjamin St-Juste from Montreal, Canada. If you guys haven't heard of him yet, he's the owner of the Original brand, and you probably recognize him as the cornerback for the Washington Commanders of the NFL. Newly coined team. He's obviously got the old jerseys, the new jerseys. The Canadian-born kid has taken the league by storm, and I'm excited for you folks to listen to this incredible conversation that's brought to you by Rooted, our hydration partner. This is Rooted's prenatal option. They have men's and women's options available for you. Use the code AP20 for 20% off. Again, vitamins, minerals, electrolytes, probiotics, everything you need all in one. This is the 181st episode of the Athletes Podcast featuring Benjamin, the Juice Man, St-Juste from Montreal, Canada. Here we go. It's just a real honor to have Benjamin St-Juste on the Athletes Podcast today. Juice, as formerly known as. Thank you so much for taking some time to chat with us today, boss.
Yes, sir. Appreciate the invite.
Yo, Montreal, Canadian native. I have to start off these conversations by asking some pointed questions, get the audience into it right away. One of the first things I wanted to ask you, what does it feel like when you see Derrick Henry take the edge on you?
And that's a good one. Honestly, I've seen so much of him like in the past from like Alabama when I was a younger kid, like watching college football to like the pros and everything. And everything you hear about him is true. You know, I mean, you try to put it in the back of your head as you go into the game and you're a pro, you're like, whatever, he's just another pro. I'm a pro too. He's just another running back, whatever. But when Derrick Henry, pops in a gap and it pops open and you start high, like, high stepping and, getting some speed because he's pretty fast, honestly, for a big guy. I think that's the thing that surprised a lot of people. Like he's 230 up there, like even a little bit heavier, but like he runs like 4 or 5. Like it was pretty fast for a big guy. So honestly, for me, smaller guy, I'm built to cover. I get paid to cover receivers. I do not get paid to go out there in the trenches and hit those big running backs. And when he comes, I try to get real low, maybe tackle the ankle, shin. If he doesn't go down, then it's on to the next one. I got to pick my battles. But yeah, playing against Derrick Henry is definitely a tough task. He's definitely big, strong and fast. So yeah.
Dude, I wanted to start it off by highlighting that because you've been able to do this for 2 years now in the NFL as a Canadian born and raised in Montreal. As you know, I love highlighting Canadians here on the Athletes Podcast. Why don't we start it back from those early days in Montreal, starting at playing hockey at 5 years old? What the heck has Ben J. Juice, as your Instagram name goes by, doing as a young kid to end up in the NFL here and a prominent member of the Washington Commanders team?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why my story and how I came to be a professional football player resonated with a lot of kids in Canada because I was just like them. I was just an average kid. I had a little bit of talent because my dad played a lot of sport, was a high level athlete. Montreal, like we all know, I mean, Canada just in general is hockey. Hockey runs the country. Our educational system is built for the kids to make it to the NHL as fast as possible, as young as possible. So that was my dream at first, I started playing hockey. I was pretty good at it, because I had the, natural ability, athletic skills to like really adapt fast. And I was quick. I was fast on skates. I had a good handle of the puck, but like, it wasn't like I wasn't like in love with it. I wasn't in love with like, being around the teammates and waking up super early for like, to go play like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. and the cold all the time. It was fun, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do with my life completely. And I didn't know that until I was maybe like 17, I just went with the flow, played for fun. And then when I was 17, I started seeing that I had like real talent to play football because I was playing both. And I kind of like pushed hockey to the side as I got like 14 or 15 and start really focusing on football. As I started seeing that I had a lot of potential and it took me some time, that was okay. I can maybe make it to the pros and go to the NFL, but that was still such a far dream because, coming from Canada, you thought someone you want to make it either to the NBA, the NFL is kind of like, why don't you just stick hockey? Like, that's what we're good at. So that's why my story resonated with a lot of these younger kids, because a lot of kids is like that in Canada. They don't really have that much choice. We don't have that much resources around making it to the NFL. So they're kind of like, you know what, let me just go with what such and such is doing. And when they look at my story, like, oh, okay, so he didn't believe in himself at first. A lot of people, that's what they think. They think like, this kid was just born to make it to the NFL. Like he had it this whole time. He knew it. I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't know it. I didn't think I was gonna make it to the NFL till I was maybe like, 19. I just started seeing my talent at 17. So
you see your talent at 17. You end up going to Michigan. Tell me about that experience, Coach Harbaugh. That's a crazy history school when it comes to football. You spend 2 years there before going to Minnesota. Like, what was that time like?
Exactly like you said, it's an amazing school, a lot of history, Power 5 school. I mean, I think honestly now that I look back at it as like an older, like an alumni, older person, like Michigan is definitely like one of the biggest and most recognizable school like in the world. Like I go everywhere around the world, back home, Canada, Toronto, overseas, Europe, whatever. Everybody knows about the Block M. So for me, going there as a Canadian, like I can maybe name them on like on the tip of my fingers, like how many Canadians went and played football there and like actually played at Michigan. So it was a huge honor for me. I was grateful to go there, and it was a big change. I had to adapt. I had to adapt to being in American society. I had to adapt to constantly speaking English every day because I grew up like in Montreal where French is the native language, French is the dominant language. I had to adapt to the competition level every day in practice. Every year, we bring in more players. This is not the players from around the corner that play Division 2, 3. It's like top dogs that play 4 stars, 5 stars that play in top programs around from Cali, Texas, Florida. So I had to compete with those guys. I went from playing in front of 200 people in CJEP, which we call high school CJEP in Quebec, to 110,000 sold out. Doesn't matter if we play Ohio State, there's going to be 110,000 people in the big house watching that. So all those things that I had to adapt, but there were great things, and I'll remember those forever. It's definitely a surreal experience to go to University of Michigan.
Yeah, and then you transfer to Minnesota before being drafted 3rd round, 74th overall in the 2021 NFL draft by the Commanders. Rookie year, going into year 3, I know you're taking on more of a vet leadership role, taking some rooks under the wing, but like, what was that initial moment, draft day, those feelings over that week?
It was pretty crazy, honestly. We were still like in the middle of COVID, so my original plan was to fly back home to Montreal and have a nice venue, nice restaurant with all my friends and family and coaches and teammates that I played with, that supported me. Big event and everything. Obviously, it couldn't happen. I couldn't cross the border at that time. The border was still shut between the U.S. and Canada, so I did it at my wife's apartment, where she was running track and field for University of Georgia. So we were on campus there, and we invited some of my teammates from the U.S. that were there, and her family came over, and it was a nice get together. I kind of have, honestly, like, it was good because my agents did a good job to like really going and fishing for information, trying to figure out like, where I'm going to go and what range I'm going to go like in the draft. So I kind of knew like there was like a period of time where I knew, okay, I can get drafted there. It wasn't kind of like up in the air, like I don't know where. It was kind of like late 2nd to maybe middle of the 3rd maximum. I'm not leaving. They were saying like, I'm not leaving the top 100. Like I'm not leaving the 3rd round. So I was like, okay, like this is it. This is day 2. Day 1, first off, I was like, okay, maybe the very slim chance, but it's day 2. Like I know I'm going somewhere. And there was a few teams I thought that I was gonna go. I didn't go. So after that, I was kind of like, oh, it could just it's fair game. Everybody can just draft me at that point. And then Washington called, and I was like, yeah, I'm like, okay. I mean, obviously it just says Washington on it. At first, I'm trying to figure out, is it Washington, like Washington's like Seattle? Like, is it like Washington, like DC? Like, it didn't really say on my phone. because I only had one interview with Washington, like with the Commanders. I met them once. I met their special team coach and I met their DB coach. And it was like 15, 20 minutes. They wanted to ask a few questions if I played special team. They want to ask a few questions of how, like, of the leader I was in Minnesota. Boom, bow, it went well. And then I kind of forgot about it. But then there was some other teams I met with them 2, 3, 4 times, and kept talking with the coaches. So I was like, okay, maybe it's them. And then ended up being the Commanders. It was Coach Rivera on the phone. He was like, hey, we got 74th pick coming up. We're going to pick you. Hope you're excited to join our defense and we like you and all that. So I was like, I was like, and it's not like automatic. I was like, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes. But like in my head, I was just on cloud nine. Like it's definitely a crazy moment. Like I never experienced something like that prior to the draft, and I haven't experienced some. Maybe like my first start as a player, but getting drafted is one hell of a feeling for real.
Yeah, I was gonna say like that drafted moment. I always like to bring it up with every athlete we have on, just because it's special and it's something you'll remember for the rest of your life. Obviously, tons of memories from the big house prior to that. Is there one college moment, memory that you look back on, whether it was pivotal, in game, out of game, coach, anything in particular that you look back on was like, hey, this is pivotal that got me to that next step?
Yeah, most definitely. I would say 2019, my first year that I transferred to Minnesota. The coach Fleck really liked me. He wanted me to step in and be a leader and fight for that starting job. Obviously, he wasn't going to give me anything. I had to earn it. There were some guys there that were older vets, seniors that been playing in Minnesota. So I had to compete with them. And at first, I didn't win the starting job. I was in the rotation. They had the older guys playing, but they were slowly, incorporating me into the rotation and playing. So first 3 games, I played a little bit. And then the 4th game, one of the guys was having a hard game. It was a tough game, so they pulled him out. I was like, "You'll put Juice in." And I went in, and I just started completely shutting down receivers. I had like 4 PBUs. I had like good tackles, good third down and stops. And on the special team play, I was a gunner. And I started running. The guy pulled my shoulder down, and I ended up tearing my labrum. Saying that was my first game as a starter, and I was like balling. I was like, damn, like I worked like this last 2 years, like my sophomore year in Michigan, I was hurt, so I had to transfer and stuff like that. Now I got hurt. Like, it's like, is this it? Like, do I gotta sit out for another year? But then they popped it back in. They put a little brace on it, give me some like ibuprofen. I went back out there and finished the game the right way. I think I had another PBU.
Jeez, that's that hockey player in you, eh?
Yeah. So I just had to tough it out. I had to find like a way because I couldn't let that opportunity go to waste. So I ended up playing this whole 2019 season off a torn labrum, and it hurt every time I hit or whatever. It hurt every time I tackle. They went for a PBU, but that was one of my best college career. Honestly, like I got drafted in the 3rd round based off that season, based off these 11 games that I played, because the first 3 I was kind of like in the rotation. I didn't play based off 11 games with a torn labrum in a new school. First time playing, I got drafted because the 2020 year was just COVID, and I ended up playing 5 games, so they didn't really look at that. So that was it. That was a pivotal moment. That's one of my best memories in college. That was one of the best years University of Minnesota had. We went 11-2. I think we lost to Iowa and we lost to Wisconsin. That's it. But then we beat number 4 Penn State ranked at home. We beat Auburn in the Outback Bowl. So definitely great moments.
It's tough to beat those college moments when you've got 100,000 plus people all voting for going for that. Like, I don't know. I mean, you've played NFL. Does it compare? What's the comparison like?
Not at all, which is wild though. It just doesn't compare. Like I played in Michigan, I played in Minnesota. Obviously, Minnesota is like 60,000, and Michigan is 110. But those fans they're just so dedicated to support the team 110%. It's like a religion for them. Like here, like yes, I think we have a great fan. I think we have the best fan base in the NFL just because of like how much history there's behind like Commanders, Washington football team, and then Redskins, all the Super Bowl with like Joe Gibbs and all that stuff. Like the fans here in DC, like in the DMV area, like they're it's deeply rooted and they love us and everything. So, but none compares to like a college football atmosphere and experience. Like it's really just something else.
It is. My first and only college football experience, Mizzou against Georgia last year when Mizzou almost upset Georgia.
Yeah.
That right there at the end. There's some questionable calls. We won't go into it on this one, but whatever the case may be, Mizzou ended up losing. But it was wild, to say the least. That was on our AP tour probably 6-8 months ago now. It's crazy to think. But one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is like your snaps from rookie year to second year have increased now 35%. The completion allowed percentage has dropped by 20%. And you called your shot on the Commanders YouTube channel by saying you're going to be all pro this year in your third year. I wanted to see where that confidence comes from, because obviously it was instilled with you from your father playing Quebec national events growing up. You've had this athlete mindset from a young age, but like, how do you have that? Is it just seeing those numbers and knowing that projection and trajectory is still going to occur?
Honestly, I'm just trusting the process. Like with how long I've been playing football, I understand that it's all in the process, never an end result. Coming in as a rookie, I was just trying to fit in, make sure my job is done right, make sure I'm listening to what the coaches is saying. Second year, I'm starting to take a little bit more chances than third year. This is where I put it all in the sec, where I can be comfortable. I understand the game plan. I can start taking these chances. You don't really make all pro by just being conservative and just flying on the radar. You got to go start making fake chances and make game changing plays. And but that comes with knowing what you're doing. So I have to master the playbook. I have to master, create some sort of chemistry with the players around me, because football is a team sport. You can't do that individually. So I need my teammates around me, and we need to build a connection. So now I can be like, okay, I'm gonna do this. Cover me on this hand, or do this and do that. And that's how you become all pro, by like affecting the game, creating those playmaking plays and turnovers and all that stuff. And that's what I'm looking forward to doing in year 3. And I think the reason why I'm so confident saying that is that I had to see it first. I knew I had it. I knew I had the talent. I knew I had like all the opportunities to be an all pro. Like seeing it last year, going against top receivers and like, having great game and shutting down receivers and, making big time plays and big time games. I saw it now. I'm chasing that feeling to always replicate that exact situation. So that's what I'm chasing all year, all third year, for to get the all pro.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I'm in favor. I think it's going to happen. I got no doubt. The original, je peux parler français aussi. I didn't want to do it all in French last week.
Okay.
I got you.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Last week we had Alex Caron on the podcast, who's obviously a CrossFitter from Montreal as well. So we're doing a little Montreal, a little back-to-back Quebec action. Maybe because the Remparts just won the Memorial Cup a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you're following that as well. But we also had the Canadian Open won last night by Nick Taylor.
I saw that.
Yeah, were you watching?
Was that the same video of the guy getting tackled by security?
Adam Hadwin, yes. So Adam Hadwin comes in because this is crazy. So for people who are just listening, like golf in Canada, the Canadian Open, this is the first time a Canadian's won it in 69 years. So a big damn deal for Canadians and the sport of golf. So Adam Hadwin jumps out onto the green to try and celebrate, covering him champagne, and gets absolutely tackled by that security guard. You're a cornerback. What did you think of the tackle?
I about to say the form was great. He put his head out of the body so he doesn't get hurt, wrapped him, and brought his hip with it and smashed him to the ground. And after that, he kind of like locked and make sure he was like, it was a real secure tackle. And then he looked, he was like, oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just tackled a professional golfer. No, but it's crazy. I couldn't believe it. It was awesome. And not to take away from what Nick Taylor did, because he played a fantastic last 3 days of golf there, and probably wrote history books for the sport of golf in Canada, and it's probably going to inspire golfers for the next 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah, most definitely.
I'm curious, like, for you growing up as a Canadian, similar age, like, who inspired you? Were those athletes anyone in particular?
Ooh. See, that's the thing. I think that's the thing that I'm trying to change in Canada, because we had we didn't have that many players that made it to the pros, for a young kid in Canada to be like, okay, so for hockey, like growing up, I'm like, I'm trying to be like Sidney Crosby. I'm trying to be, like Mario Lemieux. I'm trying to be like, Maurice Richard. I'm trying to be like Patrick Roy, all those guys, that grew up like so those guys. I see those guys at the arena. I see those guys at the Bell Center, like playing or whatever, so I can say that. But like in football, we didn't have that. So it was hard to be like, I'm trying to be like that guy. So I always had to compare myself and wanted to be like, maybe an American player, football player. Growing up, I was a big fan of the Baltimore Ravens when they had Ray Lewis and Reed, Charles Sugg. That was a nice defense and everything, but it was hard to like kind of like relate to someone that was just like me because those guys grew up somewhere else. And that's what I'm trying to change. I'm trying to change that narrative. Now that I've made it to the NFL, I'm trying to give back as much as possible to the community, the football community in Canada. That's why I always host the annual camp, and I bring a lot of my teammates from around the NFL, NCAA, and all that stuff. I fly them out and bring them to the camp in Montreal to teach to like 600 plus kids football technique, how to do this, how to do that, or just ask questions of signatures. Because when you see it, it becomes real. Representation matters. I can tell you like, hey, maybe in 5 years you'll be doing podcasts with Elon Musk or whatever and all that stuff. But like, if you don't start with like maybe doing pro athletes and creators, all the people in the big market, then it's kind of like a far-fetched dream, But once you start to do a podcast, well, okay, I did this with this guy and I learned this guy's big time as a public. Now you're like, okay, I can actually reach what I want to do in the end goal. So that's what I'm trying to do, So growing up, it was kind of tough to have a role model that, looked like me, that was from the same area as me.
I could not have asked you to say that any better. And I only say that because I have followed your content now for a couple of years, probably since you've been drafted, had my eye to try and get you on the show, because you're absolutely right. There haven't been Canadians in the sport of football to showcase kind of who we are and what we're doing. And there are exceptions, like a guy like Randy Chevrier, Cameron Wake, who, for instance, played with the BC Lions, went to the Dolphins. So they're out there, but few and far between, right? And like what you've been doing for Montreal and for the sport of football in Canada has been incredible. Tell me a bit more about that camp, how much it means to you, the people impacted, who you've been able to bring out. Like, I want to shine some more light on it.
Yeah, so like I said, the camp has never been just an idea that popped up when I first got drafted. I've been wanting to do that since I was a kid, because I was like, man, I wish there was some camps where, U.S. football players come and we get to learn, some professional technique. We get to learn how to market yourself, how to be a pro. That's the sort of thing. Like now we move into with the NILs and how much money they're paying these college kids and pros. Like you got to act like a pro. Your Instagram, your social media got to be correct. You got to be clean. You can't be out there, like posting stuff that shouldn't be on there. Like that's what we teach maybe the older kids, maybe not the younger. I might can't, but the older kids, we have someone that teaching them how to market their stuff, how to act like a pro, how to keep your mental sane. How to have a good mental health, nutrition. It's not just about how good you can move or how fast you can run and push weights. It's how how you eat. Are you eating healthy? Are you eating enough for your body to fuel and everything? You can't put regular gas in a Formula One car. That's the saying, and that's what we do. It's a full service camp. I really started to put a lot of effort and resources in when I got drafted, because I had the time. I went back home in 2021. I was like, hey, I'm doing a free camp, at this date, and I posted for a week on my Instagram, and 150 kids showed up. So I was like, imagine what I can do with maybe a year of preparation and resources and staff and people that come and help me. So that's where we at now. Camp is happening June 30th and July 1st. We got 650 kids signed up, boys and girls. I have a lot of my teammates coming up. I have Derek Forrest, William Bradley King that played for the Commanders. I have Kwity Paye, that was a first-round pick for the Colts. Luigi Valland, another Canadian from Ottawa, playing for the Minnesota Vikings. Hunter Reynolds, I play for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All those guys. I got some NCAA guys. So all those guys will be able to teach these young Canadian kids, football technique, and those kids will get to ask them questions. How do you make it to the pros? How is it? How do you feel? What do you do before the game? Like stuff that they wouldn't be able to ask, because this is the bridge I'm trying to not bring, I'm trying to create that bridge between, the pros and the kids that we have back home, because otherwise, we go back to the far-fetched dream. If you can't see it, if you can't feel it, then it's just a dream, it's kind of hard to really have the motivation to keep going. So this is our goal. It should be another successful camp. Last year was another successful camp too. We had 500 kids. So great. It's called
Dude,
Back to Origin.
yeah, you got me fired up, man. This is cool, and it's not done enough. I don't think like people necessarily take advantage of the platform they have. This is something you're doing. You're also doing it on social media. Like, I really appreciate the fact that your TikTok, like, you're educating people on what an NFL player makes and what $1 million
Yeah,
signing bonus looks like for a first rounder compared to a
yeah.
third rounder, and the fact that 47% goes to taxes. Like, how have you developed this kind of almost mature approach to this? Like, is it having that younger brother at South Dakota State that you got to make sure you put rep like a good example for, or what's that? Like, how'd that start?
How did it start? I don't know. I think it's something that's deeply rooted since I was a kid. I always been interested in learning stuff. It doesn't matter what it is. I always want to learn. I never want to be left in the dark. I never want to be that person that just like says okay or no, like to like certain situation without knowing what I'm getting into or what I'm doing and all that stuff. And I always have like a tendency to like when I go to a new team, I always pick out the most savvy vet, the vet that's been there for a long time, that has his own schedule, that knows the ins and outs of the team and the facility and where he's at and all that stuff. The smart guy. And I'm trying to replicate and follow what he's doing with a little bit of like how I do my own thing, because I think that's the best way to like really make your transition smooth, and to like really get to know how to get around and all that stuff. And on top of that, my dad always told me like you'll become like who you hang around. So like you tell me like name me like five, like show me your five friends and I'll let you know what you're gonna do in life, what your future holds for you. So I was trying to hang around people that know all those stuff, like all the information that's put on my TikTok. I either Google it because I learned it from someone, or I hang around those veterans and those other guys that been there 7, 8 years in the NFL and that knows all that stuff. Hey, don't spend all that $1 million signing bonus because you gotta give 47%. That's so if I didn't know that and I'm like, hey, I got $1 million coming in, let me put a down payment on this house for 800,000, then I will have a nice surprise when tax season comes around. But I knew that from the beginning, so I was able to plan. And that's just not just for life, but just for football and all the other stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a lot of other stuff that goes along outside of football, right?
Yeah, exactly.
People don't realize the amount that comes in and what you got to do. Um, One of the things that I like for you though is live good, look good, play good. You kind of live by that motto. You've got the original. I'd love for you to share about that, but like how you now transfer that into what it's like driving that Porsche 992 Turbo S Sicko Green. Like give us some insight.
Yeah. So I always had a big love for car. I've been a car enthusiast since I was a kid. I had all the video games and Gran Turismo and all. So my dad was a big car lover. He had a Porsche when he was younger, in his younger days. Obviously, when he started to have a family and everything, he can't have that car. Um, just because of time and all that stuff. So, but he still talked about it, showed me the ropes, so brought me to car shows and all that stuff. Always had some card books. So that when I got my first big check, I first got an Audi RS7. I didn't want to go with the Porsche at first. I felt like it was a big purchase for like just getting the NFL, and that was my first car. So I'm like, okay, let me not get my ultimate car that I'm gonna keep forever. So I got the RS7. It was a great car. I drove it around, but I was like, I really want to go to the track. I like to learn how to drive my car. I like to take turns and like really get the high speed and all that stuff. And I was like, what better car than the Porsche? I mean, the Porsche is a great daily and a great track car. So I traded in after 2 seasons, saved up my coins, and I bought that, and I've been loving it ever since. I'm a car lover. I got another teammate in my team, named Benjamin Davis, big car guy too, has a McLaren 720S. So me and him always hang out together. We go to Cars and Coffee early in the morning. I wake up early for practice. I wake up early for that suit thing. I wake up early for practice, 6 a.m. and I'll wake up at 6 a.m. also to go to Cars and Coffee with the old guys, get a cup of coffee, talk about some cars and all that stuff in exchange. They love football. We love cars. So it's great. It's a great, off the field hobby.
Dude, you got to have those, right? It's important.
Yeah,
And
most def.
I think you growing up playing hockey, playing basketball, skiing, I saw some stuff you out there on the mountain. Like, I think doing those little things, like you've attributed that to being better for your agility. Can you maybe touch on that? Like how much sport has impacted you, not just playing football, but others, and like how it's directly related to your performance on the field?
Oh yeah, I mean, like that's what I always tell the parent. A lot of parents, like when they come to my camp, they ask me for like advice and all. Saying, what should he do? He's playing soccer right now, and he wants to do football. So I'm like, leave it in both. Leave it in both. Try to play soccer, play football, play hockey, track and field, boxing, all that stuff. The more sports you do, the more skills your kid will acquire. The more well-rounded and all-around athlete he will be. You never want someone that just specializes in one thing. You want a jack of all trades. And I think this is one of the hidden gifts hockey gave me, because how tall and how big I'm not supposed to be moving that quickly. I'm not supposed to be that fluid with my hips and being able to play in the slot and on the outside. Like I've never seen a nickel that's 6'3". I'm 6'3", playing nickel in the NFL, being able to guard these short receivers. But now that I think about it, it comes with playing hockey. You have to be so quick, stop on a dime. You have to be able to defend skin backwards. You know how hard that is? Like, that's crazy. Like, that's what I do. I used to be a defenseman when I was younger and stuff like that. Then they moved me to, like, right wing. But you have to do all those things. And most of the guys in the U.S., they don't play hockey. They play maybe basketball and track and field. So it's a different skill set. So I bring something that's different to the game.
It's dude, it's incredible to watch because I can see it, and you can tell as an athlete when you watch other high performers who have played other sports, and you can tell who's just specialized in that sport. Also, because of the injuries that they've probably faced over the years, injuries are not something you've been able to avoid completely. Obviously, having to face them, you've gone through, been pretty open about what rehab looks like. The fact that you were like on your ankle 3 weeks after instead of the typical 6 to 8. I know you're doing red light therapy, doing a ton of rehab, but like, can you share what that's been like, facing injuries, overcoming them, how other athletes can maybe approach them? This is something that you've had to experience a couple of times between your labrum, ankle. It can be a devastating thing for some people to go through, but they can come out on the other end 10 times better.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, honestly, we play physical sport. There's gonna be some injuries that you can avoid, like soft tissue, like you hydrate, stretch your body, take care of it by doing massage, all those stuff that you can avoid. You can avoid, but there's certain injuries that you just can't. It just comes. It's the price you have to pay to play football. So for me, I had a concussion my rookie year. That kind of like was lingering. So you don't want to play with that. Maybe I could have came back. Maybe not. We don't know, but. The NFL, they don't take any more chances with that, especially with head injuries. So they're like, take your time, come back when there's symptom-free, there's nothing. My ankle, somebody fell on it. What can I do? I mean, it's a physical sport. He fell on my ankle twisted. I had a high ankle sprain. Tried everything I can to come back fast. Didn't work out. It's an injury that takes a lot of time, especially at my position. Maybe if I play something else, I don't know, like Pat Mahomes had a high ankle sprain, can tape it up and do a whole bunch of stuff and kind of like, take a few steps back and throw the ball. But I play DB. I have to react on a dime like this, like, receiver running this route, cutting and everything. I have to follow him. So I can't really do that with a high ankle sprain. So, but my tip for that is really, like I said, be proactive. Know what you're getting into. If you know you have an injury or whatever that you need to work on, have a plan. Oh, this is the exercise I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to warm up for practice or a game and all that stuff. And then after that, it's all about your attitude towards it. You get hurt, got to bounce back from it. Is that going to define you? You're going to let that injury define you? That's what I always tell myself, okay, somebody fell on your ankle, you hurt, whatever. How you going to come back? I got to come back. It's an opportunity of a lifetime to play in the NFL. I can't let one single injury stop me. I'm going to play all the way until I just can't no more, until I'm like, you know what? My opportunity is past. Let me give the torch to somebody, a younger guy, because I've had too many injuries. But for the moment now, anytime I get hurt, I'm like, okay, how can I come back as fast as possible so I can continue and maximize my opportunity?
Yeah, tell me about your trainer Taylor's Tuesday and Thursday ligament workout.
Oh, Taylor, yeah, that's a great addition to the team. I call it my team. With all the trainers that I was able to work with throughout my career. Taylor worked at Cooler Sports Performance in Colorado. He was in Texas prior to that, but I went there for my first off season this year. My wife is from Denver, Colorado, so I spent about 2 months there, and I was looking for a good gym to work out with, and this is the one that popped up. And Taylor, basically had a good plan, specific plan for what I needed on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we worked out Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Tuesday and Thursday was all the ligament and all that stuff that we do. So this is the proactive part that I was talking about. I wasn't hurt at that time. I was healthy. I was just, working on bringing us some strength, flexibility, and mobility back in my ankle. But now I was able to work on all the other stuff, ligaments in my hand, ligaments in my shoulders, stretching, putting all these putting my body in a weird position where when the injury happens, now my body, I built that muscle memory that my body knows, okay, we're used to that. We're used to like your wrist being like this from Tuesdays and Thursdays for an hour and working on it. Because if I don't do it, then when I I fall on my wrist or I fall on my knee, ankle, whatever, then my body goes into shock and be like, oh, like you're hurt now. Let's like swell up the thing and try to swell up the ankle or the wrist and make sure that like it's okay. But if I do it on Tuesdays and Thursdays and my body's used to it, it comes back faster. So shout out to Taylor for showing us that. He actually got that from his business partner and training partner that he worked with Pat Mahomes, that now works with Pat Mahomes. So Pat Mahomes do that also every week during the season, the off season. And it's one of the reasons he was able to come back that fast from that ankle injury, because he do that all the time. He works an hour every week on it and do all that stuff, and it really helps.
There you go. Do ligament workouts and you might win the Super Bowl, right? Something like that. Yo, we also have a question from the audience, that being Mr. Marco Rodriguez from Twitter, who asks, which receiver in the NFC East is the hardest to cover? I'm sure you've been asked this a couple times. Who you got for it?
So in the NFC East, this showcase Giants, Eagle, hardest to cover. You know what? I would say Devontae Smith. A lot of people would say AJ Brown. AJ Brown is really good. But I for me, since I'm bigger, like it's not as imposing. I'm able to stay square and press him and all that stuff and go up and play the ball with him. Maybe for like a smaller defensive back, it's a little bit more like, imposing and tough to guard. But for me, Devontae Smith, like once I get hands on him, like, yeah, I can win, but it's getting the hands on him that's really hard. Like he's very like fluid. He's quick in and out of his route. He has like one speed, like he runs his route and never change speed. So you don't really know like what he's going to do. And he has great ball skills too. Like balls in the air, he gets up there and get it. So I would say Devontae Smith.
Okay, I like it. Follow-up question to that: was that Super Bowl last play a hold?
That Super Bowl what?
The last play in that Super Bowl, was it a hold?
Oh, was it pass interference?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a tough question. Honestly, like, see, this my opinion on it. It was pass. It was holding. He did hold. We see it on camera. He did hold. He hold the jersey. I think it was. I don't know if it was past 5 yards or before 5 yards. But what I'm saying is that you don't want the game to come down to that. You know what I'm saying? Like as a referee, as a fan, as a player, you're like, if it's not flagrant, if he's not like the jersey's not being ripped and everyone can see it, if we have to go through replay and see it, like, don't let the game come down to a penalty. It's just like now you leave it to speculation, like, oh, we could have won if we didn't have this or this and that and whatever. So I wish we could have just like not called that and then kept playing. Well, I say hybrid, like them, like the Chiefs and the Eagles, like just because of how close they were to the end zone. So it's sad they had to go down like that, but yes, he was holding.
It's tough when you watch playoff hockey, like what's going on right now, and you see that called as a penalty.
Is he that call as a penalty?
Yeah, when you see playoff hockey the way it is, the guys getting out, losing teeth, bleeding on the ice, like it's just a different, kind of environment. Refs a little bit difficult.
Yeah, it definitely is. Always, I mean, honestly, this year was a little bit harder for me to tune into the playoffs just because Montreal had a terrible year. Hopefully, we bounce back next year. I was really happy to see them, like, during the 2021 when they went to the Stanley Cup finals against Tampa Bay. And then also, like, if Montreal doesn't make it, I root for Colorado just because they used to be the Northeast. And my wife is from Denver, so I root for them. They win the Stanley Cup. So, but yeah, that ain't much like playoff hockey, honestly. Like it's throughout the season, like yeah, like you might see like a few action here and there. But playoff hockey, like I went there in person. I went to see the Caps here. I went to see OB play. I went to see Colorado play. Saw Montreal. Like when they're in the playoffs, like it's definitely something to tune in. Like the energy, like you said, is wild. The hits are crazy. You know, you see teeth flying, blood, fights, all that stuff. Like I love it. You know, I love it. I still love it to this day.
Yeah, and I think that sport of hockey has contributed to who you are, Juice, now as one of the most prominent cornerbacks in the NFL. I appreciate your time so much. It's an honor to be able to feature you on the show. The way we wrap up every episode, Ben, is we ask our guests what their biggest advice would be for the next generation of athletes. And I can't thank you enough for coming on, sharing the last 40 minutes here of your time. You're also the co-founder and co-president of College Athlete Unity, an organization that regroups student athletes from across the nation to fight for racial and social justice. You've spent 40 minutes here, been gracious with your time. I'd love to leave this space for you again here to just share any other advice, tips, insights, things you got going on right now in the world, because it's pretty incredible what you're doing, and I want to give this opportunity for you to share what you got.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you first for having me. I love doing this. You know, from one Canadian to another. Support is one of the biggest thing. And so advice for the next generation. You know, yeah. I mean, obviously you got to keep working. You got to keep staying motivated. But that's like you've those kids heard that many like so many times. So what I'm gonna say is maximize your opportunity and resources that you have around you. So the next generation that's coming up will have more information and more knowledge than me and you. You know, we grew up in a different generation where, you know, social media, the internet and all that stuff, AI, all those stuff weren't there yet, you know? So it was a little bit hard to get access to stuff to build your platform and build who you want to be. And now with those kids, you know, with those new kids, new generation coming up, you have access to all that stuff. You know, there's people, there's mentors, there's AIs, there's social media, there's NIL now paying you. So you can be whoever you want to be and build your brand on your own. You don't need those big companies, or you don't need someone to really like teach you everything at that time. You can search up and look up all that information. You want to sign up for a camp, boom, you can do this. You want to learn, you know, I don't know, like you want to learn how to do like defensive back drills and how to take care of your body and what to do before, after a game. You can go on the internet and maybe look up a podcast, a Patreon, a hub, or anything, you know, that teaches that, you know. So all those things that we didn't have. So maximize that. Like, it should never be a kid that says like, you know what, I don't know how to do this, like, or like, how can I do this, whatever. If it's not in person, let's say at my camp for football, where I bring someone, then you can search up on the internet. And then when you do go to those things, let's say you go to a conference for content creator, you go to my football camp or whatever, don't be shy to ask questions. It's your one opportunity right now. Take advantage of it. Ask question. How can I do this? How did you do this? How do you do it? Because you might never see that person ever again. You know, so this is my advice to the next generation.
Dude, Benjamin St-Juste, thank you so much, dude. This was amazing, and people are going to take a ton from it. You are inspiring another generation of incredible Canadian and athletes across the world. Thank you for inspiring those individuals, continuing to push forward, your perseverance and self-belief. You're doing amazing things. I can't wait to follow along with the journey. Hopefully we can make it out to Montreal for your camp, man.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, Dave.
Appreciate it. Thank you, folks, for tuning into the 181st episode of the Athletes Podcast featuring Benjamin St-Juste. Big shout out goes to him for coming on the show. If you haven't checked out his camp that he's putting on in Montreal this summer, please do check out his website. All the show links below. Again, big shout out goes to you for listening to this episode and probably the 180 previous episodes. It means the world to us. Phoenix Wayland is our editor and producer. I'm David Stark, your host. Again, thank you so much. We can't wait to see you next week for another new episode of the Athletes Podcast. See you then. Bye.